I think there's a tendency to group all people who have problems in social situations together, and to maybe kind of act like they all kind of have the same thing. There's a tendency to think of people who have social problems as just being autistic. That is, they are kind of to some extent trapped within their own mind. They have a trouble conceptualizing external reality, and as part of that, they have a very hard time emphasizing with other people. They can't read other people's emotions. They can't really learn their patterns. They just have it's autism is a general empathy disorder. It's a general disorder, as far as I can determine, with interacting with the outside world. Now, it's not an empathy disorder in the same way that being a sociopath is an empathy disorder, because autistic people don't necessarily have a problem with their morals. They don't have a corrupt moral compass. They may do really strange, socially unacceptable things in public, but being autistic doesn't make you more likely to be like a bank robber or to like torture people like being a psychopath does or being schizophrenic does. So there's that, which is just a general inability to empathize with other people, etc. Now there's people who have social troubles for completely different reasons. I actually don't score low at all on empathy tests. I was evaluated just this year, which is when I finally got my diagnosis of bipolar, and the psychologist said I actually scored far above the mean for empathy. So let's say zero empathy is a sociopath, and someone with 100 empathy is almost like histrionic and just they cry at everything. I probably score around a 75, where the average is about 50. So I actually don't have an empathy disorder. I like cry when I see animals hurt. Um, I I like cute animals. I smile at little children. Children. I don't mean that in a creepy way. I like little kids. Um, I feel bad if I think I've inconvenienced someone or harmed someone. If anything, I'm kind of the opposite. I'm excessively concerned about disappointing others, etc. So there are people who have trouble in social situations and are kind of awkward sometimes and have trouble relating to others, and it's not due to a lack of empathy, and it's not due to an inability to read social cues and understand people. The other kind of end of it is people who have a trouble emoting properly. Now, there's a variety of different reasons for this. Bipolar, though, is kind of the one I'm the most familiar with. And how it is my mood is not dependent on the situation. So that makes it very hard to interact with people a lot of the time because I can't. Because part of socializing is you kind of share in a communal mood, if you will. If there's like if you're at a party, there's a certain type of atmosphere. If you're at a concert, there's a certain type of atmosphere. If you're at a family dinner, there's a certain kind of atmosphere, and the people kind of partake in it, and they interact with each other, and they kind of emphasize and socialize with one another in accordance with an atmosphere. Or if you're talking to someone one on one, you kind of will synchronize your moods to a certain extent so that you can socialize properly. The problem is people who have emotional dysregulation, um, they can't emote properly. People who are bipolar, for instance, generally speaking, just don't have a normal emotional range. I know some of them do. I don't have a normal emotional range. It's part of the reason why my voice often kind of sounds monotone. Um, I don't always emote to things. Like I'll laugh at things, etc. But for me, a lot of what I do on a daily basis just feels like I'm acting. It feels like I'm putting on a person suit and I'm just trying to fulfill what the socially accepted role is. Because my mood really doesn't have much to do with what's happening to me. There are Christmases where I'll get all the presents and I'll feel like killing myself, despite that it should be a happy occasion. There's family dinners where I will just stare off into space and be unable to even really talk to anyone. Um, there's horrible events where like my computer might die and I might lose hundreds of hours of work, where I'll just be smiling and humming to myself. It's not really related very often in my life to what's going on. Things may trigger it, but even when they trigger a mood switch, it's not proportionate. It's an extreme wild mood shift if I have one. Like maybe someone will give me like a bit of advice at work, and it'll trigger a full blown manic rage, and I'll immediately start thinking about like killing people. Like that'll just come to me, or I will just have just sudden urges to do things like that. Just terrible urges or images will flash before my eyes, or things like that. And it makes it very hard a lot of the time to really interact with people. Not because I can't read their posture, not because I can't understand their voice or whatever, but I just can't emote properly. I kind of have to act in a way that I think is what's socially required. So if I'm in a situation, I will just try to make conversation in the way I think it's supposed to be. It just doesn't come natural to me. Not because it can't come natural to me, but because if you have like feelings that you want to kill yourself and burn the world, it's very hard to engage in light conversation. So you just have to do it as a rote behavior. If you're trying to show gratitude to someone and you feel like like maybe someone makes you a dinner and you're depressed and the food just tastes like ash in your mouth, you have to just try to pretend to feel good and to pretend that you enjoyed something that you just didn't. And the inverse is true, where something terrible might have happened, but you're in a manic phase and you're feeling happy, like someone might have died, and you're just like, oh boy, it's too bad that person died, but we get free food at the funeral! Whoopee! And then you're just kind of like humming and jumping around and stuff like that, and that really bothers people. So then you have to basically just spend most of your time acting in a way that's completely inconsistent with how you feel. And you have to just continually separate your emotions from your actions, and it leads to dissociation, and it leads to just a general inability to relate to other people, and it leads to a loss of frankly personal identity, um, because you can't act at all in accordance with the way you feel, and the way you feel bears no resemblance to reality. So you kind of start to segregate your mind, and the dissonance between the way you act and the way you live your life and the way you feel on a daily basis is kind of a deep-seated source of pain and a deep-seated source of just disconnectedness, and just makes you incapable of really relating to other people. Because you look at other people and you see that they are acting and behaving in a manner that they feel like, and that's really what you can't empathize with. You can learn social behavior as a rote behavior. You can learn how you're supposed to react in a certain situation, which I often find I do. I often find, because I just don't have an emotional reaction in a lot of situations, so I will just quote something from a movie or something I've seen someone else do, and I will just attempt to imitate that because I just don't feel like that normally. Now that's different from being a sociopath or a psychopath, because they just don't. They wouldn't even have really that feeling of guilt, because I feel bad about it and I feel that I'm missing something and I feel dissonance. A psychopath or a sociopath, as far as I can determine, would not feel dissonance. They would not feel that they're missing something. Um, they would just kind of be emotionless. I'm not emotionless. Bipolar people are not emotionless. They just face a disconnect between their emotions and their behavior. So it's kind of the opposite problem. Like an autistic person, I think, has their emotions intact, but their empathy is not intact. Whereas a bipolar person has completely wild and crazy emotions, but their whatchamacallit, their ability to empathize with others is completely out of whack. So I hope that made sense. This is Argent Templar signing out.